and could be a lot more movement than in years past. Here's what Poles had to say in his pre-draft presser in Chicago yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's deeper in certain areas than others. Usually the cutoff is a little bit quicker. I think once you kind of get into 2, 3, and this one's going to be a little bit different. So I think there's going to be a lot more movement than there has been in the past. There's a lot of phone calls going on right now.
A lot more movement than in years past, yet Smalls, there has not been an ounce of movement up until this point. These comments by Ryan Poles make me go in a million different places. When you hear that, Smalls, you think what in terms of a lot more movement? Who is he talking about? What is he talking about, et cetera?
I think we are in for a very fun Thursday night based on those comments and based on everything that we've heard leading up to this point. We've highlighted a million times Adam Schefter pointing out to us that there have been no moves leading into the draft, and part of that is probably because there is such variance on the quarterbacks outside of Cam Ward. Teams don't necessarily have that person they've identified that they want to mortgage their future for to go up and make that move to put themselves in position, and they want to see how the chips fall on Thursday night. But after number 2, when the Giants are on the clock, I expect there to be all sorts of surprises, phone calls, trades, people moving up. I'm expecting teams to take players that we aren't expecting. Jacksonville is so interesting at number 5. I would be really surprised if we get through the top 10 and it's essentially chalk on Thursday night.
Same here. I think there's the likelihood that we're going to have a ton of movement because there's no consensus on the quarterback, but there's really no consensus outside of the top 2 prospects in this class that are position players in Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter. And so based on how teams view players, beauty being in the eye of the beholder, based on what teams actually need in terms of the voids on the roster post-free agency, I think that there's going to be a scramble when it comes to squads moving up and down the draft board and trying to position themselves for value, but to also meet the needs that they have. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a crazy first couple of days in this NFL draft.
So if we were to do the, Ryan Poles called it wild, right? If we were to do the wild rankings, wild card rankings by team, let's just kind of go through this. So Shefty put out there the Jaguars at 5, wild card. Are they the first wild card, or are we looking at?
No.
Okay, who's the first wild card?
First wild card is the Cleveland Browns.
So you think there's a chance? Peter Schrager reported yesterday the Browns and Giants are not hanging up the phone when the incoming call comes in. Not that they're making outgoing and not they're going to move the picks, but that they're listening. So you think the Browns could trade the pick?
I think the Browns are trying to gather as much information as they possibly can, as every team should at this time of year, right on the eve of the draft, because I do anticipate that the Cleveland Browns are going to move up from the first pick in the second round, which is number 33 overall, to try to get back in the first round and potentially make a run at one of these quarterbacks not named Cam Ward. I do anticipate that happening. Now, I don't know how high up they're going to have to go, but in this due diligence period where everybody is doing fact-finding, the Cleveland Browns are hanging up the phone because they want to get as much information as they possibly can about what the value of the number 2 overall pick is, yes, but also about what other teams are looking at in terms of the value at the top.
All right, so Smalls, then let's do it this way. Instead of power ranking, I'll just go through. Tennessee, not a wild card. Cleveland, a wild card. Smalls, Giants, wild card. Either one of you? Giants?
Oh, yes. That's where I was going to go. CC went Cleveland. It's the Giants for me, and it's specifically around Shador and what they want to do at the quarterback position. You pointed out that Adam Schefter had all sorts of nuggets in his podcast, and we know that he had the great piece filled with info that he dropped at ESPN.com. And I cannot shake the quote that he had from there, how one evaluator said that if the Giants like Shador enough to take him at all, because we've been speculating maybe they go Abdul Carter at number 3, and then they find a way to try to jump back into the first round to get Shador. But as one NFL executive put it to Schefter, if they like Shador, they're going to take him at number 3. And if Abdul Carter is all of a sudden somewhere on the board, he's available at 4. Oof. How will teams respond to that? What team is going to try to jump up and make a move to grab somebody who is that caliber of player? So I'm not taking it off the board that the Giants could take Shador at number 3, or they could do something that really surprises us.
Okay, so that's okay. So wild card at 2, wild card at 3. I believe as a Pats fan, they are a wild card at 4. Because I don't. I don't know if Will Campbell, the offensive tackle from LSU, is so much better than the other offensive tackles. You love Membu from Missouri. I've thrown out there this guy, Josh Simmons from Ohio State, who was once going to be a top 5, top 10 pick.
Kelvin Banks
from Texas. You've thrown out there as like, nah, he's probably going to sneak his way back into where he originally was before this season. So if New England's looking OT, there's multiple options, and they're a young football team with a new regime getting extra picks to replenish a roster that they didn't, well, Elliott Wolf did, but Vrabel didn't pick. Seems logical, no?
I completely agree. I think all of those teams right there in the middle of the top 10, New England at 4, Jacksonville at 5, Las Vegas at 6, in a perfect world, would want to trade back because they have needs at multiple positions. And I don't know that there's necessarily somebody that's head and shoulders above the field when it comes to their positions of need. Now, I think Ashton Jeanty becomes a wild card. I know we're talking about wild card teams.
No, but that's 5.
But there are wild card players. Ashton Jeanty is a complete wild card.
So 5 Jacksonville. Shefty said keep an eye on that. Tech McMillan, wide receiver, Arizona. He said don't expect Mason Graham to go there, as everyone has, the defensive tackle from Michigan. So Jacksonville wild card, Vegas wild card. Smalls, what about the Jets? I mean, Shefty said they're moving in silence. Obviously, we don't know what they're doing exactly.
Well, shouldn't that just by proxy make them a wild card?
So they're in as a wild card.
They've been so hush-hush. We have no idea what they're thinking. We have no idea where they're going to go. So are we taking it off the board that they could absolutely surprise us? I'm not.
No, I agree with you. Carolina at 8? Wild card? Or
I have no idea what the Carolina
Well, then that's yes.
Yeah.
I would think that they'd be in the business of trying to find a pass catcher for Bryce Young, but I have no idea what they're going to do.
Okay.
I have no idea.
9, New Orleans. I don't know that they're as much of a wild card as people think. I don't think they're taking a quarterback at 9.
No, I think they're going offensive line.
So is it, I guess the wild card about New Orleans is that they're not a wild card. That's actually the flip of all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this.
Xin chào tất cả mọi người đã quay trở lại với kênh của mình. Ngày hôm nay mình sẽ tiếp tục hướng dẫn các bạn làm vòng nhé. Và hôm nay của mình sẽ có tiêu đề là thổ cẩm. Mọi người, hôm nay tiêu đề mình có là phòng trừ. Bây giờ mình sẽ bắt đầu làm nha. Mỏi quá, anh là nhầm lắm quá. Hello. Đầu tiên là màu hồng. Chúng ta hôm nay bên nhau rồi. Quên gì? Đi xa rồi anh rồi gì? Nóng quá. Lambo nóng quá. Ô, sao hôm nay không thấy Thùy Dương nhắn tin bảo đón đi học nhé?